Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us. We are spanning across all of the country today and into Canada. We've got Heather Odendaal, which she's the CEO and the co-founder of WNORTH. And today we're talking about leading women in the workforce. I'm excited to jump into this topic. Just a few housekeeping rules. If you're tuning into this live or catching the replay, definitely shoot us a comment. We are open to questions. And Heather, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate you jumping into our hot seat.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and to be talking about a subject that I'm so passionate about. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. And Nate, always good to see you. Happy Friday, friend.
Happy Friday. Glad you could be here.
You too. All right, well, let's get this started. Nate, I know you have some questions lined up for Heather, so I'm going to let you take the first question.
All right, sounds good. Well, Heather, again, thank you for coming on. And, the first thing I want to ask is what is WNORTH and why did you start that organization? Tell us a little bit about that so we can kind of lay the land for the rest of the questions coming up.
Yes, for sure. So I started WNORTH while I was working for a Fortune 500 company. I was a remote employee. And I noticed that there were very few women in the top 3 levels of leadership in my organization, although 90% of the sales team that I was on was female. And what I started to notice was this lack of support for women kind of in that mid-management, mid-career positioning, and being able to elevate those women into positions of senior executive leadership. And I myself was looking for a bit of community in and around women who were ambitious and driven. And I actually went seeking a conference where I could connect with women across industries, across borders, Canada and the US, to build a sort of more of a North America-wide network. I just couldn't find it. And my background previously was in event planning. So in 2015, I launched a global conference called WNORTH Conference. And WNORTH has evolved from just being a conference annually to now being a global membership that connects driven and ambitious women to achieve their leadership goals. So that's a little bit about what WNORTH is.
Okay. All right. So from speaking with you and everything, it seems like your main area of focus is women who are mid-career. Can you talk to us about why that is? Like, why do you target mid-career as opposed to like when they're in the initial start of their career or maybe even later on? Talk to us about that purpose there.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I focused there is that's where I saw the least amount of support. I saw a lot of communities and memberships and events that were focused at women who were just getting into their career. And then I also saw a layer of executive coaching and high-powered events and big splashy conferences for women who were C-suite level. And I really, in fact, applied for one of those and didn't get in. And I was like, talk about inclusion. I really wanted to be a part of a community of, almost senior level women that would kind of support me and have sort of a peer mentorship as I elevated in my career. So I guess basically when I couldn't find it, I recognized there was a real niche to support those women. The other thing is back in 2014, I feel like a lot of people were talking about, and still do, talk about how there's more Daves and Johns that are CEOs in Fortune 500 companies than there are women. But a lot of people weren't talking about the fact that, well, the reason there wasn't this pipeline is because we weren't supporting, and a lot of women were dropping off at certain mid-management roles. And so I really wanted to continue to support and motivate women to stay in the game, especially in corporate North America. And so that's kind of why I doubled down on this demographic. And as it turns out, it's very, very much needed. And in fact, we've tripled the size of our membership in the last 18 months, because during the pandemic, this demographic has really needed community more than ever.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on the growth so far. That's pretty amazing. So tell us a little bit. Let's get into, so now that we kind of know what you're doing and everything, let's talk about the details of it. Let's get into breaking it down. You know, one, I'm a business owner. Two, I'm a guy. Help me understand what it is you're doing, how it can help me, how you can help other business owners like me, or even, just, they may not be the owner, but CEOs or upper level management, be able to create those support structures, because that's all something we all want to get behind. So walk me through that.
Definitely. So I'm located in British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada. And in the west coast of Canada, as in some other west coast of the US as well, we have a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. And we also have a lot of head offices. And one of the things I noticed is that some of the women who were working at really large organizations, they had internal women's networks that were able to support some of the women in this demographic. So they had their own conferences, they had training and development opportunities, but there were many organizations that didn't have that type of structure. And what I do know is that the higher you get on that sort of corporate ladder, for women, the lonelier it gets. And so one of the foundations of one of the reasons why we started this was actually to be a support tool for those small to medium-sized businesses, as well as the larger organizations that are open to having their women cross-pollinate. That's another conversation, but and cross-connect with other women. So we have forums like executive coaching that we do in a group format at a very reasonable price point for these women. We have networking opportunities, all that we've been doing virtually lately. We are doing workshops monthly. So we're doing a lot of training and development type opportunities cross with connection building that I think is truly valuable for these organizations that are looking for something to support their women with, but recognizing that if you're not at a senior executive position, you may not have thousands of dollars to support them. So that's kind of, if I was speaking to a CEO of a company, that would be my pitch is, for those women that are high potential in your organization that you really want to grow and keep motivated, just having a membership for them and even sending them to our conference, which we do annually in Whistler. And it's coming up in April 2022, if I plug that. I would say that's where we really thrive, is being able to bring those women together.
Okay, that's awesome. So whenever a company is building a structure for this, right? What are some characteristics that they need to look into? What are some tried and true processes in terms of laying out this foundation? And do you like provide coaching and consultations on how to build that out, or is it more you're just a support network for the women in itself through your website? How does that exactly work?
Yeah, so as an individual, I do quite a bit of consulting and speaking. I also have an events company. So when we're actually a destination management company, when organizations come to where we live, which is Whistler, which is an international ski resort, we will host conferences for them, plan events, that type of thing. But at our essence for WNORTH, we are a training and development platform and opportunity. One of the things that I have started to get a little bit more vocal about is building a membership. So I have started to coach and educate some others on, how to build that community, especially how to build that community authentically online, because we were primarily events, in-person events business pre-pandemic. We had been doing a lot of events online, but we were a hybrid. So we were doing events in person, we were doing events online. And as everyone knows, last year, we all had to go online. So I have been working on some things coming up around educating how to build community.
Okay. Well, I know we've got Gary chiming off repeatedly over here with a lot of comments. Tisha, you want to walk us through those?
Sure. Well, I want to bring up the question that Gary asked before. So Nate, if you'll bring that up. But he talked about, he was asking the question, Heather, about what are a few characteristics you're looking for with a group of women you have an interest in. And I think it's important because you said you've done some work with C-suite, you've done some work with this, but you were really trying to identify the niche that doesn't have the support that they need. And I think you and I have so much in common because I also used to run an events management company. I also used to have memberships, and I was trying to figure out what is the niche that I want to serve. And it came from a lack of, there isn't anything for me, right? Like I was a mom entrepreneur, and I was like, there isn't anything that I'm needing, or what's out there isn't what I'm trying to find. Like I'm going to go ahead and create it. So very similar path of, all right, we're going to start this and we're going to grow this and we're going to attract the people that need that support in that community. And then of course, yeah, the live events, the virtual events, all of it. But if you would just talk to us about the characteristics that you're looking for, if we know of some women that we can send your way, that would be fantastic.
That's a great question. So I would say, if I could paint a picture of one of our members, our member, Sally. She is a senior director at a large organization, and she maybe has a small family, kids at home, and not necessarily, but this particular individual, she has aspirations for a top position. Doesn't necessarily have to be C-suite, but she is looking to move up into a VP role in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. And she's looking for some other like-minded, ambitious women in her, not just in her city, but also to connect across cities. So one of the things we're seeing a lot of right now is people moving all over the country. I mean, the remote work has enabled people to move from San Francisco to Austin, from New York to Connecticut. People are moving out of cities, or they're moving to other cities. So I think now more than ever, building a network of women across North America is really important. Previously, a lot of these communities were focused in one city. So you leave San Francisco and you've left your network behind. And I truly believe that building connections beyond your city is really important. I'm from Toronto originally. I'm now in Vancouver. I may move somewhere else. So I'd say that Sally also has ambitions for building a network that's just beyond her immediate city. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that's good. It's very important too, because like you said, I mean, even in my role before, I joined different organizations because I had a bigger vision. I didn't want to just stay in Arizona. I wanted to move even some events that I had into California. So being around organizations that had that presence nationally or even globally was very key. So it's important that you say that you don't just have to stay where you are. You have this expansion where you can now meet everybody globally.
Definitely. And one of the things I would say is, to achieve that, we previously, pre-pandemic, had 6 chapter cities. We are doubling down on that. We're going to go to 12 by the end of 2021, and maybe beyond that as well. So if there's anyone out there as well that has a city in mind that might want to get involved in WNORTH and be a chapter leader, I invite them to add me on LinkedIn and we can chat more as well about that.
Nice. And we'll drop your information too, Heather, as we wrap this up too, because I think that's a great resource for people that are looking for you. They're looking for that support. They just don't know where to find it. So thank you for sharing that resource. All right, Nate, I just want to give a shout out to some other people that just are joining us, Nat Handler and Luis Melendez. Thank you so much for tuning into this. Luis always saying Casual Convo Friday gives him those golden nuggets. So thank you, especially talking about women in the workforce, Luis. I know that. So Nate, okay, next question for Heather.
All right. So Heather, I'm going to use myself as a little simple case study here. Okay. All right. So we're going to do this. So I'm a business owner, and we're looking at our organization to build programs that can support women in a better fashion. What are some typical programs that you see that have been really successful, and what are some that you've seen that haven't been as successful? Either they were just bad, or they just weren't received well, or whatever the case may be.
Well, I think one of the interesting things that I am seeing is, and I'm a firm advocate for empowering the women in your organization and the employees in general to have a say in what their development looks like. I think that in traditional large corporations, there's your training and development, tiered structures of the courses that you have to take to get from A to B. But I think there's this whole other level of leadership and development that should be driven by the employee themselves. So as an example, I think one of the great programs that I'm seeing, and little side plug, we have one too, is we have a mastermind. We have a leadership mastermind program where we have an executive coach and 5 members in our community. And they meet every 2 weeks, and this is an included benefit in the program. And they're not only getting some guidance from an executive coach, but they're getting that peer-to-peer mentorship. And so I would say, courses are amazing and they're a great element to add to any leadership development. But I think that peer-to-peer mentorship and that ability to talk through issues with other individuals is becoming extremely powerful. And obviously there's a huge movement for coaching, but I think that added layer of having a coach and having a small community is, it's been our most successful program for sure. And we've launched several courses and a number of things, but it keeps coming back to building those connections and talking through issues with others.
Okay.
I have a question before we start with the next question, Nate. So when we talk about masterminds, Heather, do you feel like there is kind of that secret number or that optimal number of this is how many people should be in a mastermind versus it being more of this big group setting and people leave going, well, I don't know if I got anything out of that because I didn't get the attention? I'm just curious to know your thoughts because I'm doing some research for myself.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd love for you to chime in on that. And then for our viewers who may be thinking about masterminds as well.
No, it's a great question. And I think it does matter what type of format you're doing or the content. As an example, I'm doing an energetic time management mastermind for working mothers. And originally I was thinking 10, but I actually upped it to 20. Also acknowledging that busy working mothers might not always be able to make it.
Sure.
So I made it a little bit bigger. But I think the optimal number is around 8 to 10 that are actually on the call. 6 is also really great because I think about the Zoom screen and I just think about just having 6 boxes. But I think that sort of 8 to 10 on a call. So depending on your audience's attendance, I would over-index a little bit. Through the pandemic, we've seen a drop in attendance by almost 50%. So I'm going to somewhat assume that with 20 registered, we'll get 10 to 12.
Sure.
So that's my feedback based on the 50 or so events that we do a year. So hopefully that is helpful.
No, that is. Thank you. Thank you so much. Great. Okay. Nate?
Yeah, we got a comment from Nat. You want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, so the comment says, I have always been involved in masterminds having to do with my consulting business, not clients with 3 to 4 people. So I think it really depends on where you're comfortable too, of being able to give that attention to the people in the room versus spreading yourself too thin. I think it gets really hard if you're in a mastermind or you're in this group meeting and there's like 50, 60 people. And like, to your point, Heather, you're like scrolling. Oh, let me see where you are on the screen. There's just so many people. So yeah. I agree with that too.
One screen.
One screen is good, especially when you're virtual and there's a lot going on, a lot of things going on.
Now,
Very good.
Do you two ladies, because I've seen masterminds done a few different ways, but like the primary difference that I've seen in a couple of them, one, they'll have a moderator that basically runs everything, you know, does the questions, people will chime in, and they make sure to call on everybody and get ideas. Or do you like it where it's just kind of like open forum? Like, which one do y'all like the most? Which format do y'all enjoy the most?
I mean, I think having a set agenda is helpful. I think coming in to the program with a clear expectation of what each person's going to touch on, with the moderator leading and ensuring that everybody has enough time. But I don't like it when the moderator steals the show. So. Yeah. But I also like it when the moderator makes sure that everybody gets a chance to speak and everybody gets a chance to contribute to the conversation, and pulls those shy people into the limelight.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that going into a mastermind where it's just like, whoever wants to say something, the floor is yours. And then you get those people that they're not being courteous or respectful of others' time. And let's say you said it's 30 minutes to an hour and now 30 minutes have gone by and we've just been listening to one person. Then you kind of get that, well, why did I show up for this? Like, I didn't really feel like I got what I needed out of this. So I do feel, I mean, I've been in masterminds, and I don't know about you guys, but they've had timers just to make it that, okay, about 5 minutes, we're listening, we're very attentive for the 5 minutes that we have, but we do have other people that we need to talk through. This is the group mentality that you're getting into, right? This isn't one-on-one. This is, let's be respectful of everybody else in this group.
I love that. That's great. The timer.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only time I've seen the timer done, that's one of the ways I've seen it. The only bad thing about the timer is like people will, like, they'll almost turn it into sales pitch time because they just start thinking in their head they've got the elevator pitch that they need to get off, and it never really gets constructive conversation. But I don't mind the timer. I'm just saying that's just one of those things. I think the moderator's got a hefty job there in terms of keeping things cleaned up and making sure it stays on agenda, like you said, Heather. So my next question to you is, what are the biggest shortcomings someone like me can make sure to help women with in the workforce? What are is it like, for me, I always focus on developing people's skills. I'm a big skills person. I'm in a business where skills is basically everything. And so, like, is it skills programs are not being developed right? Is there should there be more programs in, say, training them to be the VPs or the C-suite members? What are some places that we can touch base on that are the biggest issues of what women are not getting in terms of support?
Yeah, I think for me, from my perspective, is that the specific leadership development. I think when it comes to skills training, women are very dedicated to educational elements. So if it's brushing up on a certain skill, I don't think there's as much lack of support for that. Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to that leadership development. There's a lot of women. We all sort of, not just women, we all suffer from this imposter syndrome. And there's the saying that, if a woman wants to apply for a job, she has to have 100% of it. If a man wants to apply, he in his mind only needs 20% of it. So I think it's about creating a confidence in women to put themselves out there for promotion, to put themselves out there for a leadership position. So I think, it's not always those hard skills, but it's these soft skills that we need to focus on. And one of the things that is less around skills-based development, but one of the patterns that I see that might happen in the next few months is as we start to come out of the entirely remote work environment and we start going back to the office, I'm very fearful that women are going to get left behind again, because women are, not disproportionately, but majority of women, more than men, are opting for more of a hybrid model of work from home. And I worked as a remote sales team member for a Fortune 500 company, one of few remote employees pre-pandemic. And I really saw, and I think this was one of my motivations, I really saw it stifle my growth to leadership. I wasn't being seen in the office. I wasn't being included in certain meetings. I was not top of mind when people were sitting around a table and saying, who should be move into this next role. So I'm fearful that businesses will not adjust to this new way of hybrid, and those who will go back fully will go back to where we were, and they will be top of mind for promotion. They will be top of mind for that elevated leadership position. So I think that's not necessarily the skills base, but that's more of the succession planning. And we need to rethink the succession planning in this post-COVID, post-pandemic world. And it needs to include remote employees more so than it did before.
I can agree with that. I mean, that's one of the things, especially, since a lot of our work, it's all remote, it's IT support. No one thinks about us until something's bad is going on, right? So I totally get the whole, you're not on top of mind. What are some things that we can do? And this will be the last question. What are some things that we can do to kind of help curtail that from happening? What are some things you would suggest that someone like me could do to make sure that I keep those remote female workers involved and top of mind and things like that, because they're going to be part of that hybrid, setup. But I want to make sure that we're not overlooking it, because it's too easy to, unintentionally your focus gets on who you see every day, right? And so, like you said, a lot of people can just kind of be an afterthought, if you will.
Yeah, so I would say one of the biggest things that came out of the pandemic as to why women were leaving the workforce was not actually that women were, they had external pulls for sure, but because of those external pulls, they were being left out of important meetings, or they were being left out of important decisions on building their teams. And I think one of the ways we can really support women is making sure that they're not left out of the conversation, because that is one of the most uninspiring or demotivating things to happen. And that's when we start to sort of give up on our career, because we're thinking, well, I'm not an important decision maker in this team anymore. Why am I really doing it? Why am I here? So I think it's about a perfect example, meetings being scheduled at 3:30 at school pickup time. And for a leader to just say, oh, okay, you think you are being inclusive by saying, it's okay, we know you've got to pick up your kid. Don't worry about being at this meeting. That's the wrong attitude. The meeting should never be scheduled for that time, because they're in an awkward position. They can't make it. And if they can't make it, then they can't contribute to the conversation and feel like they're a part of the team. So the meeting should be scheduled at a time where it can accommodate everybody. And that's not just for women, that is for everybody. And so I think we need to rethink, as we come out of the pandemic as well, more conference calls, like traditional conference calls without video that you can be taking from the car. These things that we're going to start to move back to. The number of times I've seen people try to, do a video conference from the car while they're waiting for their kids at school pickup. Like, we just need to start rethinking the way that we are doing meetings, as an example.
I couldn't agree more with that, because I know, and to your point, it's not just women, it's everybody. It's you sit there and you think to yourself, and it's harmless when you think about it, but it's actually harmful. Is you're just like, you're trying to be accommodating, like, hey, it's okay if you missed the meeting. There's a recording, you can watch it later or listen to it later, whatever. So you just kind of blow it off. But then 30 meetings later, half a year away, you're that afterthought. You've missed all these meetings because it's a regular scheduled thing. So I definitely can understand that. And I know, to your point about the conference calls, given both abilities, that's something we do with our Microsoft Teams platform is you have the option of joining in however you need to, and you can listen in and chime in when you can and things of that nature. And so, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a great example. I was looking forward to come out of this conversation, because I think that's a big problem with everybody, with all the virtual stuff being still relatively new to everyone.
I like that point too. Thanks for sharing that, Heather, because I am one of those people that I'm like, I can't make that. And I don't want to sit through 30 recordings that I've missed. I'm sorry. I just don't want to, so I think people just need to go, what is the best time, or at least giving people an option of, here's some times that we're thinking, trying to just be considerate of drop-offs, kids, getting picked up, holiday, whatever, like that needs to happen more. Like you said, it needs to be more of an open conversation rather than, this is what it is, make it or you're out.
Yeah.
Good advice. Great advice. And we have Wajud Rana. I hope I'm saying that right, but he just said, great insights hearing from HO. There you go, HO. You have your initials.
I know.
Awesome. Well, I know we're wrapping this up. We're a little over time, but that's okay, because it's been a great conversation. Heather, you've had some great insight. Do you want to just wind us down with your membership, or something you'd like to share in a shameless plug for our viewers?
I would love to. I'm a salesperson at heart, so whenever I get this opportunity. So we have a membership. As I mentioned earlier, it's global, and you can tune into our events and our masterminds from anywhere in the world. We have a lot of members in North America, across North America, in 12 chapter cities. So we have a wait list, and we'll be opening our membership in the next few weeks. So you can join it at WNORTHconnect.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll put that in the comments too. But I just want to say thank you so much, Heather, for joining us today in our hot seat on Casual Convo Friday. And to all of our guests who tuned in live and are catching the replay. Nate, you asked some amazing questions, my friend.
Well, I got to make up for my past transgressions here.
You're like, talk to me like I'm a woman. And you did so amazing as we talked about how to lead women in the workforce. And Heather, kudos to you. You had some great insight. I appreciated this conversation. It gave me some good ideas too. But anything else, guys, before we wrap it up?
I think that's it. I think y'all just need to have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's Friday.
I think that's in order. Happy Friday, everybody. And yeah, have a great weekend.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Great time.